All right, as I stated earlier, we're going to be kind of showcasing some different examples today of how you can use some of the different Google applications, maybe a little bit differently or more creatively than we had thought about in the past. Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Drawings, all of these tools are more than just a word processing tool. It's more than a presentation tool. So today we're going to kind of go through some examples. You can see I've got quite a few examples at the top of my screen here. And we're going to kind of showcase how some people have created some very interesting things here. We're going to start off by talking about hyperdocs. Hyperdocs are a very interesting way of using a Google Doc or a Google Slides presentation where you've got lots of information and really you've got a whole bunch of hyperlinks that students can click on to navigate either around on that document or to other pages to complete a task. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first one. So if we look at this, this is what we would consider a hyperdoc, okay? It's a large document where they've changed the background. They've tried to make it a little bit more engaging. They've split it up into a table and merged some cells, and they've tried to create a more engaging and visual experience for our students here. And you might look at this and think, well, that's not much of anything. There's not really any content on here. There's not really anything on here. So when we actually look at it, though, if we click on different items, we have different websites that are attached to them. And this is really what the whole idea of a hyperdoc is. This is your organization here. If we click on this, it's going to link us off to BrainPop, to an activity to do in BrainPop. And if we click on this, it's going to bring us to a SlideShare. And as we continue, all of these different links will take us to different places. It's very reminiscent of like a web quest, if you've ever done one of those. Instead of searching randomly, though, for information, we're telling the kids, go here and find this information. So this is just a basic example of a hyperdoc. My personal preference, I'd like a little bit more directions on here, but if you are giving those directions in class or virtually, then this would be just fine as well for our students. It's just that idea of organizing information and allowing us to share it to them by clicking on a bunch of different links. And this looks better than if you just have the word engage and then you've listed 4 links. It's not going to look very good. So this looks a little better for us. Here's another example. So in this one, we've got our outline at the top where they're talking about what it is we're doing. And I'm going to zoom in here so we can see this a little better. We've got our directions at the top for our students, their expectations. We've got some examples that people can look at so we can link them to the Desmos. And they can look at some of these different examples that people have created. You can see your task is listed. This is for an art student. You can also watch a video explaining the task. Again, everything is linked in here. They're asking their students to actually submit their final project through a Google form, which is something that you can absolutely do. You can put their name on there and then ask for the link at the bottom. And that's a way that you can collect it if you don't have a learning management system like Canvas or Google Classroom. If you had Canvas or Google Classroom, you could ask for them to submit it through Google Classroom. So really, hyperdocs can be utilized to display larger projects in a more manageable way and to help keep ourselves and students organized. So again, here's more access to Desmos. And if you've not used Desmos and explored Desmos before, I would highly recommend it. It's pretty interesting website for math and art and drawing concepts. Here's another Google Doc that has been turned into a hyperdoc. As you can see, as I'm scrolling over here, this is 9 pages long. So the length of hyperdocs aren't as relevant because we're linking to different areas on this exact hyperdoc, on this document. So as you can see right here, if we look at these T's, This means it's linking somewhere within this document. So this is almost like our table of contents. And then if we click on this, it'll take us to the appropriate section. So let's go to the area of polygons, and it will take us all the way down to page 7. And in page 7, we can see the outline for this lesson. We can see that this is where the students will put in their work. This is where they will get either their questions, or this is where they will get directions or complete activities. Again, these all look very different, but you have to find out as a teacher and as a student what works for you. It's just, again, another way to organize our assignments and activities when we may not be with that student directly to give them step-by-step directions. This would be a great way to have this all organized ahead of time and allow your students to know exactly where they're going at their pace. And as we scroll down, we've got more and more of this on this one. Here we've got a slideshow presentation where they're doing a very similar idea. This is a little bit of a longer slideshow presentation, but it's going to be students filling information along they go. It's almost like an interactive notebook as they go. They're going to be reading, they're going to be answering questions, and then filling in answers. Here they've got a video that they can watch. Here they've got directions, exponential versus linear functions. And then here they're showing their understanding. So here the students would click down here and they would tell us if it's equal differences over equal intervals or equal factors over equal intervals. So as we go through this, there's interactive elements that the students are going to be participating on to showcase their understanding. And then as a teacher, you can go through these different individual slideshows to check their progress. All of this could be given to the students at one time, and they could work through it at their own pace. You as a teacher could check in with the students as they're progressing, see where they're at. You could give them comments on what they're doing or what they've gotten right or wrong, either directly in here or through Google Classroom or Canvas or something along those lines. And again, we have more questions, more student responses. Here we have a different type of question where they have to come up with real-world situations, or they have a real-world situation. They need to tell us whether it is linear or exponential to show their understanding. So it's just a different way to start thinking about activities. A lot of times in our classrooms, a lot of things are pencil and paper, and sometimes we need to start thinking, how can we elevate those things? How can we digitize those things? So it's easier for our students to input and display their understanding when they may not be able to just hand me a piece of paper. All right, so here we've got an example of an activity where they're using Google My Maps, which if you're a social studies teacher and you've never used Google My Maps, I would highly suggest watching some YouTube videos on how to utilize it with your students. It is a fabulous product, and it allows us to create custom maps. So with this activity, what they're doing is they're basically asking the students to create a pin and a map of their happy place, and they're able to tell the story about why is that my happy place, and then they're going to mark it on the map. And it's going to be a collaborative map. That way the students and teachers and everybody, they'll have a little pin that has a title, and it's going to have the place with your name on it. The story is going to be in the text box, and then you can even add any images or videos as you'd like. And all the kids can then click on everybody else's pins and read the stories about why that's the happy place. Why is grandma's house the happy place? Why is that park the happy place? Again, just another creative way to collect some information on your students. And really what you're looking for here is probably the story. That's what you're probably going to be assessing here, is their writing. But you're collecting that writing in a way where the students are not necessarily going to assume or just write on a piece of paper that that's what they're doing. It's just a more creative way to collect that information. Here we have one about adding fractions. And I like this one a lot because it teaches the kids two things. One, the slideshow teaches the kids fractions. as we go through. It's talking about the numerator, the denominator. We've got a review video attached. What they're also doing is some practice problems here. They're telling us how many we got correct and incorrect. But what I really like is at the bottom, down here, they're creating 10 problems on a Google form, and then they're sharing that link out. So this is a really awesome way for students to be able to collaborate with each other and to start using these tools themselves. So they're asking their students, after you've learned fractions, after you understand fractions, let's come up with some practice questions for our peers, and let's create a Google form that you can then share here. You as a teacher can collect all of these links, and now you can have 30, 300 practice questions. You have tons of practice questions already created for your students. Take a little time to teach them how to make the form, take a little time to teach them how to make it a quiz, and now all of a sudden you have all of this study material that you can give to your students with little to no effort on your end. This one is for our younger kiddos, so they can do this kind of stuff too. Even as young as kindergarten, they can be doing some of this stuff. We just have to change how they're manipulating and what input they're doing. I would say during this time of virtual learning and in-person and out-of-person learning, the biggest thing we have to understand is what is our students' method of input. Are they on a Chromebook? Are they on a tablet? Are they on in a desk with a pencil and a paper? What are they utilizing? So they watch a video. Again, we're telling them, watch this video, listen and read about our senses, and then asking them to identify with these pictures what are our 5 senses. So they would literally just click and drag them into the appropriate boxes. They're not labeled, so it's sight. We're not going to put our hair up there. That's not a sense. Feet, that's not a sense. So when we're doing this, we're able to see that they understand what our 5 senses are. And then here they're supposed to draw a picture. You might be thinking, drawing a picture, putting it in here, that's kind of hard. Look at this little animation over here. It's showing the students how to take a picture and insert it into the slides. And maybe in some cases it's showing the parents how to help with that. But the kids are literally going to go to the office, get a piece of paper, grab some crayons, and draw a picture about what they've learned. They're going to take a picture using their Chromebook and then submit it right here. This is something that if your students don't know how to do, I would highly recommend teaching them how to do it. How to take a picture, how to crop that picture, and how to insert it into a Google slide, a form, a document. This is an excellent way to collect work that might be very challenging to do virtually. But if you have them work out some math problems on paper and they take a picture, a quality picture, and upload it, you can check their work still and see that they forgot to carry the 2. And you can still give them that feedback on how to do that addition or subtraction problem moving forward. This one is helping to create some storyboarding for character traits. And you may notice that this is a much larger scale. You can actually change the size of your Google Slides presentation under page setup, and you can change the dimensions. So for this one, they were looking at a longer storyboard that they wanted to fit, so they changed that size. You can also make it like a 8.5 by 11 if you want it like a notebook size paper. So the directions here, they give them all of the directions you need to create a Google drawing with this template to create your character trait strip and upload it to a slide. So all the students are going to be working out of this document together. All of the characters will be back in here together. So all of your students will be able to see each other's work as they progress. Here are the expectations for each of the boxes. And when they click on this, it asks them to make a copy. And we're now in Google Drawings with a template. And the students can now fill in this information. And when they're finished, they'll insert a new slide like this. and they will all live together, and everyone can see everybody's work, which is nice. This one, we are looking at an interactive notebook. And I know lots of people like to do interactive notebooks in science classes or math classes. And when we think about digitizing them, that might give some of us hives, but it's not as bad as we think it might be. This is just with the slides presentation. You give it to your students. You would be the one that's making the framework. So you would most likely have your introduction. You'll have what they're learning, their standards. You would not be filling this information out. You would give them the data table and the table of contents, but you would have your students fill this out as they go. You get some notes for your students. They can fill those in as they go. You can add pictures, videos, whatever you need to in here. So you can put together larger activities and give smaller chunks of directions as our students work through them. You can ask your students to give you information here. It's typically a good idea to make their text boxes much larger or more noticeable. So here's where they would be inputting their answers. And that way, when you're going through to check them as well, it's a little easier to find them. So here we can have kind of a brainstorming activity here where it's asking us to come up with different types of words and then put the ones that are most innovative at the top. So we're kind of doing a brainstorm and then a ranking here, which is very interesting. And we can just click and move these around as we see fit. We can type in them by double clicking. Very interactive. You could also use this as like a card sort. You could make all of the answers over here. You could mix them up and then make a copy for your students, and they've got to rank things in order. They need to take all of the pieces of the scientific method and put them in order, whatever it may be. And then they can, when they're finished, they could turn it into through Canvas, Google Classroom, whatever it may be. But just again, another example of maybe thinking a little differently about how to use a Google form and how to make it interactive for our students. This is a Google Slides presentation. The directions tell us to click on a state abbreviation for more information. So let's click on Kentucky. So when we click on Kentucky, we get some information. We get a map of Kentucky, state capital, flower and nickname, the flag, and a video about Kentucky. And then if we hit the star, it'll take us back home, which I believe it said, yep, on the main slide. But we can click on any of these, and it will allow us to go back and forth. And the way they did this, really pretty simple and pretty clever when you think about it. But when in the slide presentation, they drew little shapes here and hyperlinked it to a different slide. So when you click on this shape, it's going to take us down to that state. And there's see-through shapes on top of the image. And then they made lots and lots and lots of slides. But this is where we can crowdsource this, right? So if our students are learning about the states, have your students fill in this information. Give them a template. Tell them that you want them to look the same. And they can work on it collaboratively together. You know, give one student 4 states, and then by the end of the class period, you'll have all of them done, and then all the students can study that information together. Choice boards, great way to use slides. You know, you got your directions. Start with number 5. So that's going to be our big idea. This is the one that they have to do. And then make 2 other choices to make a tic-tac-toe. Now, what we know is that to make a tic-tac-toe, they have to be 3 in a row. So you can kind of pick these carefully. So let's say that this activity, let's say we're going to say that's kind of a lower level questioning and ease level. Well, you don't want to put lower level there and there, or almost all of your students are going to select this one. What you would probably want to do, if you had a couple options that were maybe a little faster, easier, and not as higher level questions, is stagger them around to where you can't hit both of them. And then you can maybe put one here too. So they could pick one of those options, but they can't pick both of those options. So kind of think about that strategically as you go. And then the students can click on here to go to the directions. So they don't need to see 9 sets of directions. That would be very overwhelming to me as a student. But if I like what this one is this one's, make a Google slideshow showcasing blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I like to make slideshows. That sounds like a nice time. And this one might say make an essay about blah, blah, blah. I don't like doing essays a whole ton. Maybe I'm going to avoid that one. But then they can click on it and get to the actual slide that has the directions, links, and rubrics attached for that specific activity. And then, of course, at the bottom, there's a link to take it back to the top. Again, another example of a digital interactive notebook. We've got lots of clickables here. So they created a bunch of stickers here that students can use to make their notebook unique, which is actually pretty awesome. They can click in here and change their name and their subjects. They can click on these different topics to get to different areas. And the thing that I really, really liked about this notebook, I've said it once, I've said it like 100 times in these trainings this last couple of weeks. You have to teach your students how to use these tools. You're in these sessions, and we're giving these sessions because not everybody knows how to use all the tools. You have to have the same expectation when you're asking your students to use tools. Expect that they don't understand how to use it and give them the directions. So if we look here, this person has gone through and broken down the Google toolbar and explained what all of the buttons do and how to use them. And that's useful because this entire notebook is going to be in Google Slides. So all the formatting tools, all of those things are explained and identified here. They also explain how to insert images, how to crop images. They gave them an example here. To crop this image, double-click it. Click on the black corners with 2 fingers on your touchpad. Cut out the rest of the image to leave only Luigi. Why you want to get rid of Mario? I don't know. But that'll show the teacher, yes, the students know how to crop. This will show the teacher, yes, the students know how to insert the image. And you might be thinking that's one more thing, but if you teach your students how to use it in the beginning, and you know that they know how to use it, it will save you a lot of time in the long run. I promise that. It also shows them how to drag things, how to undo things. And then just some general tips and tricks about how to do other common tasks that they'll be doing within the scientific notebook or this notebook in general. So how to take a picture of something, how to take a screenshot on a Chromebook. And then again, they're asking them, okay, you've learned how to do it. Now show me that you know how to do it. So I think that this is an excellent thing to use, similar to this at the beginning of the school year. And if any of you are like, wow, I really like that, I really want that, Kathy and I will be working on culminating or curating, that's the appropriate word, curating some different templates and resources and some things to distribute to you guys if you would like to get started with those things or make a copy of it and make it your own for yourself and your students. We will be doing that in the next week or so and distributing it back out through our resources, which if you don't remember where those are, it's the Teaching with Technology. And then it would be our BCS Tech resources, and they'll be thrown in here for you. And the last one I want to show again was another interactive notebook. And this one's specifically from science. And this just kind of shows you a little bit of it filled out, table of contents. Teach your kids how to link to that page, and you can go straight there, which makes it really easy if you're expecting, I'm going to jump into this kid's scientific notebook and check the scientific model out. If this is not linked, if this is not linked, you have to go to page 15, 16 yourself, and you have to scroll and scroll and scroll and hopefully find it. If you teach your kids how to do a hyperlink, all you have to do is click and you're there, and you can review what they said. So again, taking those steps up front to help your students, and then makes your life as a teacher easier in the long run. All right, well, that was all of the samples and templates that I had in my queue to show you guys. The last thing that I wanted to, at least for hyperdocs and things like that, the other thing that I wanted to show you is a new craze. And this is a very mild version of the new craze. I can open up an example of a better one in just a second. But there's this thing called Bitmoji classrooms that are becoming very popular right now. And to me, that seems like a lot just because it's a lot of images and layering and things. And when thinking about a student trying to do something like that, that overwhelms me a little bit. But this to me is something that a student can totally do as a get to know you. We've got directions over here, and we're going to be giving our students a virtual locker where we're going to ask them to kind of share some information about themselves, organize things about themselves. So it's kind of a double-edged sword here. What it's doing is it's letting us learn more about our student. It's also showing us that our students know how to find pictures of their friends and families and put it in here, add images, add text, and all of this information. So it's allowing us to see that, number one, get to know our student. Number two, we're starting to see what type of virtual skills our students already possess, so we can start looking to maybe see where are some gaps our students might be having and what do I need to teach for sure. And then the other option of this would be our virtual cubby for students that don't yet have lockers. So, those are just some interesting ways to get to know our students, as we start this new school year out. It may be potentially in a more untraditional environment. And then here is Kathy's example. Because I have not made one. Kathy sat through a couple trainings on Bitmojis, or Bitmoji classrooms, and got very excited and ended up making one herself and joined some Facebook groups. And she showed me some really, really amazing ones. And she actually showcased them in our slides, next level slides presentation, if you want to go back and check those out, of how some people have really just gotten carried away with some of these Bitmoji classrooms. But just to clarify, Bitmoji Classroom is just kind of like an online classroom that you would utilize with your students, just like you would in your classroom, like hanging things on the wall with links and information and things like that. This is not necessarily replacing Google Classroom. It's not replacing Canvas. It's just something in addition to. And really all this is a Google slide that Kathy has then layered several images on top of each other to get this desired effect. And when you click here, we've got hyperlinks in the background. We can click here to email her. We can click here to get to our website. We can click here to get back to our available training site. So we have all of these clickable things that we could use for our students. So this is almost like taking a hyperdoc to the extreme, in my opinion, on that one. But if you Google it or join some Facebook groups out there, or get on Twitter, you'll see some really incredible Bitmoji classrooms that are just extreme with the number of links and hyperlinks and so on and so forth. And Kathy, thank you. She just linked in the chat her published training from the other day that has some more samples and examples within it. And there are some really interesting Bitmoji classrooms in there, as well as additional samples that we did not show today. The last thing I'd like to leave you with today is just remember to be creative and to think a little bit outside of the box when we're thinking of how to engage our students digitally, when we are not necessarily sitting face to face with them. What else can we do to engage them in our learning that looks differently? There's some pretty incredible ed tech bloggers out there where that's basically their job is to be super creative and to think about all of these things and then distribute things. And most of them distribute free things and they say, here, use this, please use this. So I would definitely suggest, if you are not yet on Twitter, if you are not yet following these people, here are just a few examples of the ones that I followed and have learned some really amazing things from. Even if it's a 2-minute little tip here and there, some of the things that these people share are pretty life-changing in the classroom setting. So if you do not follow any of these people, I would definitely suggest reaching out to them.
Carrie says, could you show us a quick example of exactly how to make something like this? If you're talking about with slides, I went into that yesterday and that was recorded and it should be posted, I would think, in a couple of days. You might want to go back and check that out, Carrie, if you weren't in that session.
Is that what you're referring to, Carrie?
Mostly how to insert a link.
To insert a link, whether it be an image, a shape, text, is going to be the same in Google Docs or slides. If it's words, you're going to highlight it, right-click, link, and then here you can either paste it to a website or somewhere else in the page itself. If it's a slide, you would be able to go to slide 2, slide 3, slide 4, things like that. If you have an image, puppies is generally pretty safe. You can again right-click and hit link, and then you could say that you wanted to go to google.com, and then anytime somebody clicks on this image, it will take them to google.com. You can do the same thing with a shape. So we insert, we can't do shapes in here. So we'll go back to a slide. Can't do shapes easily in here. And if we insert a shape, and then we click on that shape, we can link it again. So text, images, and shapes all allow you to make them hyperlinks or links to somewhere else, either in that slideshow document or anywhere else on the internet. So other than that, we really just wanted to showcase some of the possibilities of what you can do and what was out there for you. There are tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of resources out there. Kathy and I, again, will be curating a list over the next couple of weeks to distribute to you guys with some samples and templates that I'm sure we'll continue to add to as the year progresses, as we move forward.
Melanie says that she bought a Bitmoji classroom template from Teachers Pay Teachers. If you're a member of the Facebook community, there are tons of Facebook Bitmoji groups, and they are giving their templates for free. So I hate that you paid $7. Hopefully it was one that you really, really love. But you can get, I mean, and they're just free. People are creating them, and here, take my work. And there's some awesome ones. So again, if you're on Facebook, look for the Bitmoji crazes.
Awesome. Well, as always, thank you for joining us today, guys. Kathy and I will be here for a few more minutes if you got any more questions. If you have any questions moving forward, feel free to please reach out to us via email, We are available to help you and answer questions as you move along in this digital journey. If you would like to, you can fill out the survey and get the certificate for attending today's webinar. The link should be in the chat for you in just a few seconds if it's not there already. And that is it for today's session on digitizing part 2. If you were planning on attending our Microsoft Teams meeting that's supposed to start at 1, it is going to be a little bit delayed today. It will be at 1:15-ish. We have a fire drill happening where we are between 1 to 1:15. So if you are planning on joining us for that, we will be a bit late to that. Other than that, thank you for being here today, guys. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.